The Truth Girls.
Hi everyone. California's bill to force vaccinations of school children has just passed Senate committee. This, of course, is Senate Bill 277, which would do away with all philosophical and religious exemptions for vaccination for school children and would leave only medical. It passed the previous hearing with a 6-2 vote and now has passed the Senate Education Committee on a 7-2 vote and is now heading to the Senate Judiciary Committee. I'd like to cover a few things: the implications of this bill, where this could possibly go, and why this bill is being pushed through, despite the outpouring of the public against it. Progressive lawmakers in California violate women's rights with SB277, children to be physically violated by government without parental consent. Well, they make the point that if a woman has a choice to keep or abort a pregnancy, and she has the choice to say no to sex, then why should she not have the choice to refuse a vaccine? Either your body is your own or it's not. And if it's not, then whose is it? SB277 will unleash medical civil war in California as parents demand doctors be arrested for felony assault. Technically, if you inject someone with something against their will, that would be an assault. And so if a doctor is doing it, then wouldn't the doctor be guilty of assault? Injection without consent is a violation of the American Medical Association's Code of Ethics. True, and I'm going to go into this a little bit, the issue of informed consent. But would it actually be an injection without consent? I think it's more like forced consent. I think the doctors would have immunity in any case if they administer a vaccine, even if it's sort of under forced consent or duress on the part of the patient. The doctors are following orders under a chain of command, and as long as they follow those orders and protocols, they're basically immune, not held liable for the consequences of the administration of a treatment. However, if they go against those orders and recommend to not have the treatment, which the higher-ups have declared that they must recommend, such as, for example, a flu shot, if the person then suffers some consequences which could possibly in some way be attributed to not having had this treatment or preventative treatment, then the doctor can be held liable. So the doctors are sort of under duress themselves. The doctors are not the enemy. Come here, you, I got a flu shot for ya. Somebody hold her down, she's getting away. Back to the issue of informed consent. Informed consent is the process by which the treating healthcare provider discloses appropriate information to a competent patient so that the patient can make a voluntary choice to accept or refuse treatment. According to Wikipedia, vaccine recipients in the United States are legally required to be given a document that details the benefits and risks of vaccination prior to being vaccinated. So clearly, you do have to give informed consent to be vaccinated. But see, this law isn't mandating that you be vaccinated per se. It's mandating that you be vaccinated in order to attend school. But it amounts to the same thing because most people have the choice to keep their children home and homeschool them. So in theory, you have a choice, but in practice, you don't. How they justify this is the idea of the greater good. You have to sort of put a damper on your rights to respect the rights of society as a whole. I would say the right to religious freedom is a higher right that benefits the greater good on a higher scale. Now, let's say the government decided to preserve religious exemptions. They'd probably say, yes, but you have to prove that you belong to an organization that prohibits the use of these vaccines. Of course, you won't find one. Like I'd say a fetal bovine serum is probably not kosher. And yet, the Jewish religious establishment sanctions the use of vaccines, including the ones with fetal bovine serum. Also, some of them have things like monkey kidneys in there. That can't be kosher either, and yet it's okay to use them according to the religious establishment. And then you have the cells from aborted babies, which are in some other vaccines. You'd think that the Catholic Church would be against that, but somehow they're not. I'd say it would be a good time for someone to start up a religious organization, maybe via the internet, which prohibits the consumption in any form, including vaccines, of things like fetal bovine serum, monkey kidneys, and cells from aborted babies. But as it stands now, they're going to do away with all religious exemptions. I'd say this is like a real fundamental violation of human rights. So what is behind this? Are they really so afraid of a measles epidemic? As I pointed out in my previous video, only 2.5% of kindergartners have philosophical exemptions from vaccination. So 2.5% is a really small amount. I don't think that that's a reason to pass this kind of a bill. I don't think there's any good reason to pass this bill in any case, but you can't even make that whole herd immunity greater good argument when you're talking about 2.5%. According to globalresearch.ca, California's mandatory vaccination bill, SB277, lobbyists calling the shots, community outpour ignored. Committee chair Senator Carol Yu wisely told the bill's author Richard Pan, "If I were you, I would not take a vote today." Pan, appearing to have no power to make decisions, turned to lobbyists Jody Hicks and Janice Norman for advice. It is telling that here the authors, Senator Pan and Ben Allen, appear to be told what to do and how to do it. Pan is making his decisions based not on the thousands of families that showed up in protest, but from lobbyists. When Richard Pan turns to Hicks and Norman for his orders, it becomes clear that these individuals are the ones behind Senate Bill 277. Who are these lobbyists behind the bill and who they work for? Well, Jody Hicks was a former chief lobbyist of the California Medical Association. And the other lobbyist is Janice Norman, who currently serves as chief lobbyist for the CMA. So they work for the CMA, who probably is heavily influenced by Big Pharma. So there you have it. It's really just about lobbying. And who's behind the lobbying? Usually it's corporations like Big Pharma. So once again, the problem here is you have a corporatocracy, a government run by corporations in the pocket of corporations that does their bidding and considers that their bidding trumps your human rights. I think this is a very rotten bill, and I hope to God it doesn't pass. So thank you for liking and sharing this video, and thank you for leaving your comments, and thanks for listening to me, and I'll see you next time.